David.
Okay. All right. We'll get rolling here. 3, 2, 1. And welcome back, Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming millerandmoulton.com, broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. It's a pleasure to welcome Andy Slater, he of the Andy Slater Show, weekday afternoons on Fox Sports 640 in South Florida. You can follow Andy on Twitter at Andy Slater. Andy, how are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Well, we are doing great. Thanks so much for agreeing to do this, particularly at this hour. Andy, this is quite a story. The way it unfolded, the way they had to play through it, the fact that as we are speaking, they are still in Philadelphia. I mean, take us through this. This is baseball's worst nightmare. We knew it was going to happen. It just happened to the Marlins on day 4.
Yeah, I think you guys probably thought the same thing I did, and maybe even fans. Like, you're going to have players test positive. We knew that, okay, even in any league, not just baseball, there's going to be players that somehow are going to contract the virus and they're going to test positive. But with the Marlins situation, now we're looking at multiple players, at least 4 that we currently know of, and possibly more. So you're talking about getting on a plane. They went from Atlanta to Philadelphia late last week for their opener. And while you wait for the test results, all of the guys are still hanging out together. I mean, they're not like, chilling like they normally would. They're following the protocols, I'm sure, but they're all still in the same clubhouse. They're out there on the field, close proximity sometimes on the base paths to other players. So you have a situation, and the biggest problem to me is the time between you get tested and the time you find out the result, especially when you have a known case on your team. And the first one was the catcher Alfaro. So you've had guys around him, and now you're just letting everybody do their thing like you would this year, waiting for that test result. So it's very difficult. It's a difficult situation, and it's new to everybody, including them.
Okay, there are not a lot of scenarios if you start losing players. I guess the first protocol would be this taxi squad that's around. How are they going to try to figure out testing, figure out who is not positive, and then how would they bring players to the team from the minor league system, if you will?
Yeah, well, the tough part, specifically for them yesterday, was that this was their last game in Philadelphia, and then they're flying back home later on today, and they were supposed to fly home yesterday. So it was a last-minute thing, and they weren't able to bring anybody from Jupiter. Now today, they're going to be flying home to Miami in just a little bit. They're going to be playing there tonight, so it makes the situation a little bit easier as far as Jupiter to Miami. You're only talking about an hour and a half. The smart thing they did, though, was waiting until later today to fly home. Because, again, waiting for a test result, that's a key period of time. So from what I understand, they wound up testing everybody again today, and they're waiting for the results to come in this morning, probably right about now. This way, if there's any more positives, they're not going to allow those players onto the plane, which if they would have left last night, that would have been this scenario. So that was a smart move, and it was something that maybe not anybody thought of until the last minute, but it was a good call.
He's Andy Slater of the Andy Slater Show, weekday afternoons on Fox Sports 640 in Miami. Follow Andy on Twitter at Andy Slater. Is there a magic number that a team has to have in order to forfeit a game? And also, I mean, do we know, would the Marlins or anybody else have had to forfeit, or could you just reschedule the game? I mean, I know 4 is not enough, but it was 3 regulars and a starting pitcher, right? I mean, and they won, but my goodness, we all wonder with football training camps opening tomorrow, Andy, we've joked about if one guy gets it, could it go through and wipe out the entire wide receiving core? I mean, has it been discussed what's the magic number to have to forfeit a game?
I asked the question, not exactly a magic number, but yesterday post game, Mattingly and some of the players were made available. And I asked the question, and several others did as well. Was there any thought about not playing yesterday? Because you have multiple players who have tested positive. And again, I keep going back to this because it's really important. The key is the time between the test and the result. Think about it. You guys in your studio and your building on a regular basis, or any workplace, if you knew for sure that there was a coworker of yours that was infected with the virus, that would be like, okay, you guys go take a test, but you're still going to be in the studio. You're still going to be around that workplace. That's not a smart call. Miguel Rojas, though, he's like one of the leaders on the Marlins. And he was saying he has a chat with all the players, and they had a discussion. Don Mattingly said there was a discussion earlier before the game yesterday, like, what should they do? And the players said, hey, look, we knew what we were in for. We're going to go out there and play. So I don't think there's a magic number, but I do think if the players come together and the other team says, hey, we're not comfortable, I think Major League Baseball would understand. You do the testing again quickly. You try to get the quick results within 24 hours, and then you make it up the next day, play a doubleheader. I do believe, though, I hate to make predictions here on this kind of stuff, but I guess I'll make one anyway. I would think that we're going to see at some point, probably sooner than later, we're going to see one of those situations happen where it's an uncomfortable situation and a game's going to get postponed and then played the following day or the day after that.
I'm watching Sunday Night Baseball, and it's about 8 o'clock, and I literally said to my wife, as I see the report on the Marlins and saw the report on two Reds players, I just looked up and said to her nonchalantly, how are they going to finish the season? And I ask you that very same question. We've gotten through a weekend, and here we are with, I think, a few more tests. Like basketball and hockey, hey, we'll see. We'll figure it out when it's all done. But they're in a bubble, and things seem to be going okay. We've just started this. What happens when a team's, I don't know, 8-28, and they don't give a damn when they're on the road what they do? This is only going to get worse, isn't it?
It's a great question because there's really no answer to it. I don't think there's an answer to a lot of this stuff. And I think Major League Baseball and all the sports commissioners, they probably feel the same way. Like, hey, we put together a list of protocols. We're going to do the best we possibly can. And look, with all the players in Major League Baseball, you're talking about a 30-man roster for each team. We're not talking about, like some huge amount of players that have contracted the virus. But then again, like you said, here we are. We're into Monday, and we just finished the first weekend of the MLB season, and we got about 57 games to go. So there's a lot of unknowns. I think we're going to see some postponements. As far as finishing the season goes, I think all these leagues are determined. There's a lot on the line, and if you have to have guys sit out, if you have to test more and get rapid results to sideline some guys, I think they're going to do it. I think they'll finish the season, but again, it's hard to stamp anything because we really don't know how things are going to be even a week from now.
Andy, I don't know if you've been able to talk to enough people, and also you don't have the access that you normally do to guys to gauge, their uncertainty, their uneasiness. But just look at how different this would be, Andy. Let's just say we all worked at the Fox Sports station in South Florida, and Mark and I test positive. Okay. And if we were in the studio, well, nobody would be doing shows from that studio probably for a week, maybe 2 weeks. You would be, and if you came in contact with us, you would go home for 14 days. Whether you would self-quarantine. Now I know baseball, it's outside, and so it can be a little safer, but it's not always outside. They travel on buses from the hotel to the stadium. Obviously, they're in a clubhouse together. It's so precarious, Andy, and it's so different from how we have been told we would have to conduct ourselves if something like this were to happen at our workplace?
And it's not just something that is like, okay, well, MLB is going to do it differently because they're better than us, or they just are more special than the regular people. It really has nothing to do with that.
No.
It has to do with a safety protocol that is really, if you think about it, not that safe. Because like you just said, and I was saying a little while ago, if you guys tested positive in the studio and we all got tested the same day, and hey, I tested negative, what the Marlins and every other MLB team is doing is saying, okay, well, since I tested negative and the other people tested negative, we could still be in that area until we get our next results back. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And because of that, you would have to assume that's exactly what happened here with the Marlins. Alfaro tests positive, even though it's not confirmed. Sources are out there, reports are out there. It's pretty much confirmed that he has the virus. This is pretty much what happened with the Marlins. You had players around Alfaro, a pitching staff that he works with, players in the clubhouse. You're not going to avoid each other. And they're still in the clubhouse, and they're allowed to go out and play. And 3 days later, look at what happens. More players test positive. So it's part of the safety protocol that makes no sense for anyone, not just them, but for anyone, because like you said, you'd be quarantined 14 days. You wouldn't be allowed to go around anybody whatsoever.
Not to mention, we're just talking about the players, and you've brought it up, but the staff that's traveling with your equipment manager and all the people that have to be there. I mean, the equipment managers and the trainers, they're there for more hours than we could ever imagine doing what it is they do. Mm-hmm. And you lose a couple of them. I mean, there's so many people. There's such a big machine that is moving with this. I think those are the other factors. And again, they're just great unknowns. But I mean, Andy, let's get to the most important part. What are we going to do tonight? First place is on the line. The Orioles are in town, and it's a battle for first place in each division.
Well, we certainly hope so, right? I mean, I tweeted that out actually yesterday, just kind of, as a joke, but it's not a joke. It is a first place matchup. And a lot of the replies are, well, we think we're going to see that matchup. The Marlins are going to be flying home in about 3 hours from now, and the Orioles, they got in last night to Miami. But let's see what happens, because, again, there's going to be more test results. And we have to hope that they'll be playing tonight at Marlins Park. And, we're going to see a matchup that we never thought we would see before, where we have two first-place teams, and they're called the Orioles and the Marlins. Pretty crazy.
And I just want to confirm, Andy, the 4 Marlins are remaining in Philadelphia, and they've got to stay there, right? They've got to stay there. Is it 14 days? Is it until they test negative 2 days in a row? I mean, but they've got to stay behind, right?
Yeah, so they have to stay in their hotel room in Philadelphia, at least 4 of them. And we'll see, here just a little bit, if there's more guys that have to stay behind. But that's something that these guys signed up for, and you're getting paid, pretty big money. You knew all the protocols, and even though, just like any of us, we know what we should be doing and we know what we're signing up for whenever we're doing anything, you never think like, oh man, I'm going to be here in Philadelphia and I live in Miami, and I'm going to be in this hotel room for 14 days, or even if it's 10 days, whatever, everybody's gone and I'm just here in Philadelphia and I can't do anything at all. I mean, look, in the end, comparative to everything going on in the world, it's like big deal. But in the sports world, our type of daily conversation that we have, we're like, man, that's pretty wild. And again, we're 3-4 days into the Major League Baseball season, and we've already got this going on.
Well, I mean, and David kind of asked it before, Andy, but what does this make you think with NFL camps opening up? How often, I mean, over the weekend, Michigan State shut down. There was one other one that had to do something. of a little bit of a backtrack. The NFL, and we've had Ohio State had a little slowdown. Clemson had a little slowdown. When we've seen so many of these at the collegiate level, how many hiccups should we expect when NFL camps open?
I think we're going to see a lot of hiccups in any league, every league that cannot have a rapid result. Because if you can find out who's positive, you isolate them, you're testing everybody, retest people. There's certain places, the White House, people go in there, they have a rapid test. They know the result within 15 to 20 minutes, even if it's an hour. To be in a clubhouse or a locker room and have physical activity and play a sport, and you're not getting your results for 24 to 48 hours,
it's ridiculous.
This is going to happen. It's going to happen in baseball. We've already seen it. It's going to happen in a bubble situation. It's going to happen everywhere. So the testing, look, testing is widely available. I mean, everybody can get tested nowadays. You may have to wait in a little line or something, but the whole part about it is you gotta wait for the results. And a normal person, with the real way it should go is you go to take a test and you're supposed to isolate until you get the results, because if you don't, well, then you've just possibly spread it to so many other people. So when we're talking sports and competition, and particularly like you said, the NFL, the results are the biggest thing, and you have to find out right away if a guy is positive. You can't find out 2 days or 3 days later after they've been in contact with so many other people, because that's just how you have a spread, and that's going to be a big problem. Even if it doesn't, I don't think it's going to shut sports down, but think about if your starting quarterback gets it, and maybe he's working in the quarterback's room. So now your backup quarterback has it, and you wind up having a wide receiver play quarterback. I mean, what kind of football is that? We hope that doesn't happen, but those things have to be looked at.
Andy, great job yesterday. You were all over it. We appreciate you making time for us. Stay safe. Be well. Hopefully we can talk soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Andy Slater, host of the Andy Slater Show, weekday afternoons on Fox Sports 640 in Miami. You can follow Andy on Twitter at Andy Slater. NFL training camps open tomorrow. We knew this was going to happen, but when it did, Mark, it eliminated what really was a positive sports week. I mean, from Monday right on through, good vibes with baseball. People were watching. There was some good coronavirus news in a lot of places. Yeah, Michigan State and Rutgers kind of pumped the brakes, but they've got time to do that. And then, wham.
Well, we had, again, this is the one thing from March on, David. You and I have said, okay, guys are going to get it. What are we going to do? And we still don't really seem to have, we have protocols, but we have so many different steps, and baseball's running into that, and football will run into that all week.
When Peter Bush of NBC2, Mark, a week ago today, told us locally that, hey, I contracted the coronavirus. But one of the things that he revealed was he was able to take a test and know the results in 20 minutes. Well, if Peter Bush and NBC2 and Waterman Broadcasting, if they can make those arrangements and pay for it, I mean, tests aren't cheap, $100, $120, $130 a test, whatever it is. But they said, hey, we work in close quarters with one another. It's the only way we can do our jobs is if we have a testing procedure like this. Well, for goodness sakes. I mean, these pro sports leagues, seriously, they got to pay people to have the testing people with them. With them. Hey, you get a test. John, Mike, get the test ready. Okay, these three guys need to get tested.
David, it's as simple as after the games, I don't even think you can get in the shower until you're tested and have a result. Okay? I mean, let's get this right down. We stand in line. I had it done, David. They prick your finger. It's a blood test.
The NFL, by the way, is testing everybody every day for the first 2 weeks of training camp.
Yes, but if they're not getting the tests back immediately, we're wasting 2 days.
Miller and Moulton. Thanks to Andy Slater of the Andy Slater Show. Follow him on Twitter at Andy Slater. Thanks for being with us on this Monday morning. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
There you go. There's your little interview. You'll hear that again tomorrow morning for those of you